Welcome to Uncorking the Issues, a podcast where we pour clarity into Temecula Valley politics. I'm your host, Grapevine. This podcast discusses political and civic issues. The views expressed are solely those of the host and guests and do not represent any political party, campaign, school district, or government entity. Today's episode is titled Behind Closed Doors, the Brown Act and the Battle for Temecula School Board Transparency. Let me start with a question many Temecula residents have asked themselves. Why do so many Temecula school board decisions appear fully formed before the public meeting even begins? We're uncorking the California Brown Act and why the Temecula School Board keeps finding itself accused of violating it. This story isn't just about legal technicalities. It's about transparency. It's about trust. And it's about whether public meetings still function as places where decisions are actually made or whether they've become places where decisions are simply announced. The Brown Act is California's open meeting law. It applies to school boards, city councils, and other local governing bodies. And it exists for one simple reason. The public's business must be conducted in public. That means discussion, deliberation, and decisions are supposed to happen in noticed meetings with clear agendas and with the public able to watch and participate. The Brown Act does not require meetings to be comfortable, but it does require them to be open. And that distinction matters. In January of 2023, concerns surfaced during a Temecula school board meeting that a majority of trustees may have already coordinated around hiring outside legal counsel before the public meeting even began. That raised allegations of what's known as a serial meeting. A serial meeting doesn't require everyone to be in the same room. It can happen through one-on-one conversations, group texts, email chains, or even intermediaries like attorneys or consultants. The district later confirmed it received 2 formal Brown Act complaints related to that agenda item. District leadership said the complaints lacked merit. But here's the issue. When residents believe decisions are shaped before a meeting starts, the meeting itself feels performative. Even if no violation is ultimately proven, trust erodes. And that erosion didn't stop there. By June of 2023, a new system appeared at board meetings. Yellow and red penalty cards used to warn and then remove speakers. Under the Brown Act, removal is allowed only under very specific conditions. The speaker must be actually disrupting the meeting. They must receive a clear verbal, and they must be given an opportunity to stop. Civil liberties groups later alleged that the card system replaced those verbal warnings, turning what the law requires to be specific and individualized into something symbolic and vague. Then came July. At a July 18, 2023 meeting, a teacher was removed after calling a board member a homophobe. Advocacy groups argued that the comment may have been offensive, but it was not disruptive under the law. And that distinction is critical. The Brown Act protects criticism, even harsh criticism. Democracy isn't polite by design. By August of 2023, tensions escalated further. Public comment became heated. Objections were raised. And instead of narrowly addressing actual disruption, groups of attendees were removed from meetings. The Brown Act allows clearing a room only if a meeting becomes unmanageable, and only under strict statutory rules. Selective removal raises legal red flags. That same night, the board adopted new disruptive conduct rules. Civil liberties attorneys later argued those rules were inconsistent with state law, because no local policy can override the Brown Act itself. At that point, the issue was no longer about one speaker or one meeting. It became about pattern and practice. In December of 2023, the issue moved from complaints to court. The First Amendment Coalition and the ACLU of Southern California filed a lawsuit alleging unlawful removals, failure to give required warnings, retaliation against protected speech, and violations of the Brown Act. This wasn't a protest letter. It was a lawsuit. And it forced the district to choose between prolonged litigation or binding limits on its conduct. In April of 2024, Temecula Valley Unified School District settled. The settlement required that removals occur only for actual disruption, that speakers receive a verbal warning and an opportunity to stop, and that penalty cards cannot substitute for what the law requires. Those rules didn't create new standards. They reinforced what the Brown Act already demanded. And that alone tells you these allegations weren't nothing. Yet in 2025, public reports continued. New cure and correct letters, renewed disputes over agenda notice, allegations of improper speaker interruption, and additional Brown Act complaints at special meetings. No new court ruling, but the same underlying conflict, which raises the real question. If the law is clear and the settlement is clear, why do the complaints keep coming? This isn't a story about left versus right. It's not about one board member or one crowd. It's about whether public meetings still belong to the public. Because when rules are bent quietly, when enforcement feels selective, and when speaking becomes risky, democracy doesn't disappear all at once. It erodes. This has been Uncorking the Issues, pouring clarity into Temecula Valley politics. I'm your host, Grapevine. Until next time, stay engaged, stay informed, and keep insisting that public business stays public.